to Behind the Caution Tape. I'm your host, CrashLit. A lot to talk about this week with USC Athletics, especially at the Super Bowl. Big congrats to Sam Darnold. We'll get to that in a minute. Obviously, a lot to come up this week in USC Athletics. So just a lot going on, obviously, a lot of it very exciting. So before we do get into that, be sure to check out my new merch line, CrashLit Forever. I got the hat here, where you can see they've put my name on it. This is my collaboration with the bookstore. It's really fun to do. There are 6 great items in the collection, so be sure to grab them all. The link will be in the description of this episode, so be sure to check it now. You got the hat, the jacket, the long sleeve tee, the jersey, the beanie, and the sweats. So 6 great items. Love them all. Had a great photo shoot, so be sure to check down my Instagram. Follow me there at CrashLit to see some of the photos from the shoot and to check out the collab there. The link is also in my bio. Be sure to also follow me on X as well. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen, whether that's Apple, Spotify, any other audio service. We also have a video version available on my YouTube page, so subscribe to me at CrashLit to see those episodes as well. So, a lot to get into right now here on the on Behind the Caution Tape. And before we get into the athletics news, I did also want to just mention super congratulations to Beong-Soo Kim for being named the 13th president of the University of Southern California. Obviously, I think I've been really excited what he's done. I think he's really touched a lot of people, and I think I think the way he operates, I think, is in a way that, a lot of people can really appreciate and feel like he's not afraid to, hear sides of it before having to make tough decisions, which, to my understanding, he's had to make a lot of, especially just a lot of all the, financial things going on with USC. I don't know too much about in particular. I don't know. Heard obviously the deficits and all that, but pretty much I think the way he's been navigating, I think, is in a way where he's at least trying to, let every party have their voice heard. And obviously, I think, at least from an athletics perspective, I think this is a big move because it, I think he's obviously been super supportive of athletics, especially with just all the projects that they've began even before he even before he became the interim president. And it was also I'm excited about it because it seemed like he wasn't going to be considered a candidate. But then suddenly here he is suddenly they're naming him the full-time president, so could not be more excited for him. But obviously I personally haven't met him yet. I've waved to him once at a football game, and I was like, who's that guy? I was like, oh wait, that's the interim president. So he looked familiar, but then it just took me a minute to recognize exactly who he was. But super excited for him. So obviously, I think he obviously put out a statement about becoming president. Then so did the chair of the board, Suzanne Nora Johnson. So obviously super excited about this move. So now we'll move into a bit of other news briefly related to it, while it's still not just about regarding the Super Bowl, because I do want to give a congratulations to Sam Darnold and the Seahawks on winning Super Bowl 60. And I think this one is also exciting, not just because obviously Sam Darnold becoming the first USC quarterback to not only start but win the Super Bowl as a starting quarterback in the NFL. There was one other starting quarterback ahead of Darnold who did start a Super Bowl. Former USC quarterback was Willie Wood, who was the quarterback from 1957 to 1959, who was a former USC quarterback who did start in the Super Bowl, but he did so as a safety. So I like that USC clarified that while it still doesn't take away from Darnold's achievement, because he was the first USC quarterback to start the Super Bowl as a quarterback. So really super excited for him, especially the journey that he overcame to get there, especially just hearing just over the past year when he interviewed on Victory Podcast with Keely Orr and Cody Kessler. That interview was really great about how he, managed to stay positive, especially reading Max Brown's guest column in The Athletic a couple weeks ago. I think was also super insightful, just how Sam took it, and just I love the way just Max handled it all, just the whole situation. So I think Max Brown would be someone I think I'd love to get on this podcast if possible. So, I think it's obviously, really cool to see just what he did, especially that year at Minnesota. Then after they decided not to sign him, he signs with the Seahawks and helps lead them to the Super Bowl. But obviously, he wasn't the only Trojan who also won the Super Bowl. So do also want to, while obviously I've mainly focused on Sam Darnold just because of just how really, unless you you're a USC fan and you have you have ties to the Patriots, or you grew up a Patriots fan, whatever your reason for being a fan of the Patriots, pretty much you're almost any other NFL team fan. Obviously, Seahawks goes without saying, but all the other 30 teams, if you were technically a neutral fan, you're probably pulling for the Seahawks because of just the Sam Darnold story. But also, I do want to give a congratulations to Uchenna Nwosu, Leonard Williams, and Brandon Peely, former Trojans also who were part of that NFL team. And so obviously super cool to just see those 4 guys get to hoist the Super Bowl. So super happy for them. So just wanted to, normally I don't talk about, about USC's Trojans, but I thought it would just be super relevant to talk about the Super Bowl because of just the Sam Darnold's piece, and then just because of just his story there, especially leading him to the Rose Bowl and just the great year he had after he took over for Max Brown as the starting quarterback. Then also I do want to talk a bit about news with regarding Eric Henderson being hired by the Washington Commanders as their defensive line coach, and obviously we'll see what happens there. But I think I'm kind of like I said with some of these coaching changes, like Doug Bell, Danton Lynn, all the guys who are either choosing to leave or aren't being retained by USC. I'm not particularly upset about it because of how it because of who it allows Gary Patterson, the new defensive coordinator, to bring in. So really, I think I think obviously you look at who he's brought in so far with everyone, but I think with just everything, USC let Doug Bell go, and then they also they brought in Sam Carter, and then they also brought in Sam Carter to coach this. So they brought in Sam Carter to coach the safeties, or defensive, and then they brought in Sam Carter to coach safeties and defensive, and Paul Gonzalez to coach secondary. So really why I like this is just allows USC to, this is why I'm saying, I'm not saying I'm happy about these moves, but I'm also not upset because it allowed USC to really reset and think and give Lincoln Riley a chance to be like, all right, where do I need to figure out what I can improve coaching, where I can upgrade at coach, and where I should keep things the same. Because I'm not opposed to any of the coaches staying, but especially with Lincoln Riley being more of an offensive-minded coach, you gotta let your defensive coordinator then hire the guys he wants to and give him a bit more of a free hand. On the offensive side, I'm willing to let Riley have a bit more. I'm more comfortable with Riley having a bit more say because he knows that side of the ball. But on the defensive side, I'm fully fine with Gary Patterson, especially Patterson being a Hall of Fame coach. So really for those reasons, I'm excited about who he's bringing in with Carter and Gonzalez. So obviously super excited to see who else will come in. But I think obviously Eric Henderson leaving, even though, I think obviously I'm not saying I'm just not upset about it because of what it allows Patterson to do with his staff. So that's why I'm not really upset by this move. So that's just wanted to throw that out there. So we'll now move into men's basketball, who got an 81-75 win against Indiana on Tuesday. Elijah Arenas, with just being back, led with 29 points. Ezra Alzar leading with 7 rebounds, and Jacob Kofi with 5 assists. So USC did lead most of the game, but then struggled just inbounding the ball near the end under full court pressure, and almost lost the lead at the end, but held on. And then Arenas had a huge game, and then Chad Baker-Mazar was injured during that game against the Hoosiers and his day-to-day and did not play against Penn State. And then USC got out of Happy Valley with a 77-75 win against the Nittany Lions. And then Arenas led with 24 points, Kofi with 7 rebounds, and Cam Woods with 9 assists. So game was back and forth in the first half, and then Penn State took control for most of the second half, but then USC rallied. While it almost went Penn State's way, Arenas put the team on his back, getting 11 of his 24 points in the final 4 minutes of the game, and hit the game winner with 0.7 seconds left in the game. So obviously super impressive. I think we're seeing Arenas quickly getting comfortable on the court, which is huge. The team needs it from him right now. So really excited for just how he's quickly, how he's been performing, especially Chad Baker-Mazara out, and hopefully Baker-Mazara is back out for Ohio State on Wednesday. But if not, USC is going to need Arenas to continue to step up. So yeah, obviously, like I said, Arenas has been doing a super good job, but USC definitely needs to, make full court press an issue. And it was definitely a little better against Penn State, but I want to see it be a bit more consistent before I'm really like, okay, they've got this, because it's definitely been a little bit uncomfortable it's been, a little bit tense near the end of those games because they are struggling in that regard. So pretty much, yeah, so that's pretty much what's going on with men's basketball. And then other than that, they play Ohio State on Wednesday. The Buckeyes are 15-8 overall, 7-6 in Big Ten play. That'll be on Big Ten Network at 3:30 p.m. Hopefully Baker-Mazara is back, and USC, like I said, needs to work on inbounding under full court pressure. The Trojans now sit at 18-6 overall, 7-6 in Big Ten play. That's good for tied ninth. But right now they're projected for a 10 seed in Joe Lunardi's bracketology on ESPN in the West region. So obviously, hopefully they can improve that. But obviously in precarious position, USC needs to take advantage of these wins, especially with a lot of them remaining on the schedule being quad one. Put themselves in a favorable position to make the tournament. Now move on to the women's side, who was on the road against Northwestern Illinois, got an 83-65 win at Northwestern on Thursday. Jazzy Davidson led with 21 points. Kennedy Smith, 11 rebounds, and Davidson also led with 6 assists. USC seized control just in that game early and did not look back. Then yesterday they won 70-62 at Illinois. Davidson led with 27 points and 8 assists, and Laura Williams led with 10 rebounds. While USC held the lead throughout the game, the Illini did make a bit of a comeback, but not enough to really overcome USC. So this game was still pretty comfortably out of reach. So USC now sits at 15-9 on the year and 7-6 in Big Ten play. I think this might be the first time they've been above 500 in conference play since all season. So that's definitely an exciting development with 5 games left in the season. They're projected as a 9 seed in Charlie Cream's bracketology. They'd be in Region 1, which as it stands right now is taking place with that the Sweet 16 Elite 8 for that region. Region would be taking place in Fort Worth, Texas. So up next, the Trojans will host Indiana on Thursday night at 7 p.m. That'll be on the Big Ten Network. The Hoosiers are 14-11 on the year and 3-10 in Big Ten play. So USC needs to take advantage of the momentum they built up from this 4-game winning streak to continue to stay hot and keep it rolling to try to keep the postseason dream alive. And obviously, they're playing a lot of good teams, and they're generally quad one losses. So it's not like they've been losing to good teams, which I think helps them. But still, it definitely gets a little precarious, especially when they were, 11-9 a few weeks, 2 or 3 weeks ago. It was looking a little precarious, especially if you're unranked and you're teetering, and when you hit double-digit losses. It's not saying I think they are going to make it, especially the depth in the Big Ten. The Big Ten has a chance. The Big Ten could have produced a national champion this year. But I think it's definitely very precarious when, you're obviously teetering, you're not ranked, and you hit double-digit losses. It definitely can start to look a little precarious. So now move on to baseball, who had their first pitch event at Dedeaux Field on Thursday night. I went with Woohoo Sue, so shout out to her. And got a tour of the new clubhouse and got to just, see the field firsthand and just, get to really see just how things are going with it. It's just really cool to get a tour of how it's coming along, how quickly. Obviously, it won't be finished by opening day, but I think just the progress they've made and the fact that the team is back on campus is huge for them, that they're not having to spend all their time in buses and hotels every weekend. And even just for weeknight games at LMU, just not having to, spend 2 to 3 to 4 hours, just let's say 2.5 hours every Tuesday on a bus. So I think it's just super great for the team that they're just fully back on campus, even if the stadium isn't quite yet in the ideal situation. But I'm super excited for when it's done. Hopefully I get to see it at some point once it's finished. And also there was obviously an event together with my former boss at USC Athletics. The team reporter Keely Orr was the MC. Head coach Andy Stankiewicz spoke. Then Keely interviewed Avery Covarrubias, Kevin Takeuchi, and Sax Matson. Then those 3 players then interviewed alums Dan Bain and Brett Boone, and then obviously the Dedeaux family had to sprinkle out dust from the original Dedeaux Field to throw out the first pitch on the new field. So that was super cool to see that. And then went to the alumni game on Saturday, which the team won in 5-3 and 8 innings. They also had an old timers game before that, but I wasn't there. And it was a great environment, even though you were only kind of stuck on the third baseline and like left field. That area is kind of where you could watch the game from, but it's kind of cool. You're kind of on the field, kind of being able to wander around. So it's cool to just kind of see how the stadium's coming along and just actually get to see the guys in action, which is kind of cool for me to see that. So the cool field access was great. Then up next for them is the start of the season, which is this Friday. They'll host Pepperdine for 3 games at Dedeaux Field. That'll be Friday and Saturday at 6 p.m., Sunday at noon. So it's against Stankiewicz's alma mater. The first game's back at Dedeaux after playing 2 years off campus. Every home game for USC is free and open to the public this year and will likely be streamed on Big Ten Plus. So best luck to baseball this weekend. Men's volleyball had 2 wins this weekend, still sitting at number 4 in the country. They got a 3-2 win over CSUN on Wednesday, 25-19, 25-20, 19-25, 17-25, 15-13. Dylan Klein led with 13 kills. Wesley Smith and Cooper Keene had 1 ace each. Smith led with 6 blocks. Caleb Blanchette with 45 assists, and Klein led with 9 digs. So hard-fought match. But then I thought it was one, obviously, it's one of these games, USC CSUN, where just both teams come ready to play. So I knew USC was in for a fight, but it was one where USC looked like they could have won it in 3 sets. But then they bounced back with a 3-0 win against UC Santa Barbara on Saturday. Klein led with 12 kills. Klein, Kahili Cleaney, and Noah Roberts led with 1 ace each. Parker Tompkinson led with 8 blocks. Caleb Blanchette with 27 assists. And Roberts with 5 digs. So USC now sits at 7-0 on the season. And this is a match that Sterling Foley went down early with, I think it was jammed a finger or his thumb and couldn't play. And I was impressed how Kahili Cleaney came in and was able to step up and really help the team out in that game. So USC now sits at 7-0, like I said. They now will have a home-and-home with undefeated and 5th-ranked UCI on Wednesday night at 6 p.m. in Irvine at the Brent Events Center. I think the game will likely be streamed on ESPN Plus if it is televised before the Anteaters then come up to Galen Center 2 days later to meet the Trojans at 7 p.m. where you can watch that game on Big Ten Plus. So 2 big games against the Anteaters for the final non-conference test before the Trojans get into the thick of their conference schedule. So really excited for this one. Obviously, USC, UCI, it's a great matchup every time, so super excited for this one. So can't wait for it to happen this week. Beach Volleyball had their media day last week. I was there. Be sure to check the full episode out that was released on Thursday, where I covered the press conference, talked about the whole event in general, and then also interviewed head coach Dane Blanton and student athletes Ashley Pater and Kennedy Coakley. So big thanks to Kristen Keller and as well as Dane, Ashley, and Kennedy for letting me talk to you guys. A lot of fun. So USC will open the season at the Outrigger Duke Kahanamoku Beach Classic with their first game on the February 19th against Stanford. So I'll talk more about that next week. It's definitely going to be an exciting start to the season, and I'll kind of do a bit more of a preview of it next weekend as they gear up for that game. So lacrosse had their season opener yesterday at Rawlinson Stadium. Their first game back in 2 years, where they won 16-9 against the Golden Bears. Vivian Luthold led with 4 goals. Charlotte Morton had 7 saves and 9 goals allowed and played the whole game. So in Cowan, USC did trade blows in the first quarter, but then USC started to pull away in the second quarter and then took control in the second half. So up next for the Trojans, they have 2 games coming up this week. They'll face Denver on Thursday. It'll be at 6 p.m. on Big Ten Plus. And then Brown on Sunday at noon, also on Big Ten Plus. So USC stays at home. It's an opportunity, I think, build momentum early for this team and, get fans excited about the team being back on campus, especially after 2 years off and, having their own stadium, which obviously I didn't make it to the game yesterday, but I was there for soccer, and it's a really great environment to watch a game. So obviously, whether you're watching from the stands or from kind of the viewing deck, on the east end of the stadium. You're not going to go wrong with where you go. So obviously, if you can, definitely you should try to check out a game there. So we'll now move on to women's water polo, who dropped to number 3 in the country, and they got a 16-8 win against 7th-ranked Long Beach on the road. On Saturday, Ava Stryker led with 4 goals, and Anna Reed had 9 saves and 8 goals allowed and played the whole game. And then USC started strong and just didn't look back. So USC sits at 9-1 the year. I'd imagine they will likely stay at 3rd in the country. Then up next, they'll take part in the Barbara Calbus Invitational. They'll be hosted by UCI. The opponents for that have not been announced yet. So hopefully but yeah, definitely an exciting event. USC will have games on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so I'll be sure to keep you all posted on how they do if, we don't hear anything about once I know more about it. And then we'll now move on to swim and dive. With the men's team facing UNLV, women having the day off. They got 200-61 win against the Rebels, winning 15 of 16 events. So finish the season 4-5 in dual meets. So up next, the women will have their Big Ten championships in Minneapolis from February 18th through 21st. And then the men will have theirs in Madison a week later from the 25th to the 28th. So it's an opportunity for USC to position itself well for the postseason. Track and field took part in the New Mexico Collegiate Classic in Albuquerque, which was hosted by the Lobos on Friday and Saturday. They took 5 event wins on day 1 and 5 more on day 2. So another impressive weekend for them. So up next for them is the Don Kirby Elite Invite, which is also hosted by the Lobos. That'll be on this upcoming Friday and Saturday. So it's an opportunity for USC to come back to Albuquerque and continue to impress. It's the final indoor track and field event before indoor conference and NCAA competition. So best luck to them next weekend. Men's tennis got 2 wins on Sunday, a 4-3 win against UNLV early in the morning, with the Rebels claiming the doubles point, and then USC getting singles wins from Max Ekstead, Andrin Casanova, Niels Hoffman, and Connor Church. Then at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, a 4-0 win against UCI, and USC got the doubles points and singles wins from Casanova, Church, and Pablo Robledo Hoyos. So USC now sits at 6-3 on the season and will take on Pepperdine on Friday. That'll be at 1:30 p.m. So opportunity for USC to compete once again with Big Ten play looming. Our final team to talk about today will be women's golf, who finished tied 6 out of 16 teams. They went 17 over par, 869 total score in the Therese Hessian Regional Challenge at Palos Verdes Golf Club. That was from February 1st through the 3rd. And then individual scores, Bailey Shoemaker finished tied 12th, 2 over par, 215 total. Tied 19th, Elise Lee, 4 over par, 217 total score. Tied 23rd, Kylie Chong, 5 over par, 218 total score. Tied 43rd, Catherine Park, 9 over par, 222 total score. Tied 63rd was Jasmine Koo, 13 over par, 226 total score. And then tied 68, who was playing independent, was Chloe Kim, 14 over par, 227 total score, and that just means her score didn't count towards the team. So up next for them will be the Alice and John Wallace Classic from February 14th through 16th. It's the final event before USC gets a few weeks off before the final stretch of their season. And then a couple things I did want to mention that came out that meant that I needed to add late to my notes was about Big Ten freshmen, some Big Ten conference awards for both men's and women's basketball. So Jazzy Davidson was named the Big Ten Freshman of the Week. And then Elijah Arenas, after his week that he had, was also named the Big Ten Freshman of the Week. So USC basketball claiming both the men's and women's freshman conference awards. So congrats to both Elijah and Jazzy. They've been super fun to watch all season long. Obviously Elijah, especially impressive considering it's only his 5th or 6th game back. I'm not quite sure, but he he has not played that long, so obviously super excited for him to be back. So that's going to do it for us here on Behind the Caution Tape. Actually, before we go, I went 2-0 last week. Got 2 wins at men's volleyball against CSUN and UCSB. So I'm 44-15-1 on the school year, 355, 134-1 all time, 5-0 at men's volleyball this year. So my plans for this week are men's volleyball Wednesday night at UCI and women's basketball on Thursday against Indiana. And obviously, that's going to do it for us here on Behind the Caution Tape. Be sure to follow me on social media. For those who don't know, if you want to know what games I will be at, if I upload the official game day graphic by the USC team that is playing the day of the game, that means I will be in attendance. So be sure to keep an eye out for that. If anything changes, that's how you'll know what I will be at. So thanks for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, both audio and video. Follow me at CrashLit on Instagram, X, and YouTube. See all my latest content. Be sure to check out my media day coverage of USC Beach from the MPSF Beach Volleyball Media Days. That episode came out on Thursday. Be sure also to buy my CrashLit Forever merch. My collab with the USC bookstore is really fun. Be sure to check out all 6 pieces. The link will be below in the description of this episode. So thank you all for tuning in. It means the world to have your support. See you all next week, and fight on.